Well, welcome back to another episode of The High Ground. I'm Reed.
And I'm Matt.
Well, today we're talking about Lord of the Rings in general, more specifically the upcoming film. I want to say it's probably at least a year and a half, possibly 2 years out at this point, The Hunt for Gollum, to which the writers, directors, a lot of the same names coming back. I know Peter Jackson's having some influence on it, although I do believe Andy Serkis is actually going to be sitting in the director's chair for it.
Yep.
For those of you who don't know, Andy Serkis, our beloved voice actor that plays Gollum, along with a multitude of other nerdisms as far as voice work or just live action appearances. But anyways, so the whole idea is the Hunt for Gollum is this storyline that took place adjacent to the events early in the Fellowship of the Ring, to where it was this whole time period between the time where Frodo had been given the ring by Gandalf, or Frodo had acquired the ring after Bilbo left it. Between that time and then Frodo later leaving the Shire, which in the movies it's quite interesting because it makes it seem that that time period was maybe a few days, a few weeks, or maybe a month or so.
Yeah, they make it seem like Gandalf went to Gondor and came right back, but they don't really touch upon the amount of time it takes to simply get to Gondor and back.
Well, correct, but also in the books, so Frodo, I believe, was 30 when Bilbo's 111th birthday took place. But in the books, the time period between that birthday party and when he actually left, which was actually the night of Bilbo's birthday again, but it was actually, I want to say 20 years later, if not 30. Oh yeah, it was 20 years later because Frodo had just turned 30 and he was leaving just as he turned 50 at the same age that Bilbo originally did. But once again, in the books, the storyline, it's a period of 20 years, but the movies makes it seem like it's only a few days, few weeks, etc. And so I say all that to say that in that time, this whole storyline took place. This whole, and it's hinted to when Gandalf's kind of telling the story of, okay, he searched everywhere for the creature Gollum, but the enemy found him first, and then somehow he knew all this information. And it kind of just leaves it there. It doesn't really explain how he knew that, like what took place, where did he get all this information. So before I kind of walk everybody through kind of that timeline roughly and kind of get going, initial thoughts, Matt?
Well, honestly, I'm not looking forward to this movie. I know they're making a game as well. I'm honestly not really sure what the fascination is. With Gollum, it seems like it's pretty much out of left field. We've went how many years since the final movie? It's been many years since that final next trilogy, and then suddenly they're pumping out a Gollum video game. And then they shortly after that announce a Gollum movie. You're like stepping back, like, where's this sudden fascination, this obsession with Gollum coming from? He was never really anyone's favorite character. So it just seems kind of strange to me that this is kind of where their focus is. And I think it's misplaced. I think Amazon Prime, their focus is in the right place. Their direction, their vision, their execution isn't quite up to par, although I did think the second season of Rings of Power was far better than the first season. It is actually a pretty enjoyable season. I think that's the direction the franchise needs to be focused on, not on Gollum. It just seems weird to me. What do you think?
Well, I can understand that perspective. However, I would counter by saying that even if you completely hate him, you have to respect the fact that he is essentially the connecting factor throughout all the original three, the Hobbit trilogy. Love him, hate him, whatever. He's in the weirdest way possible. He's almost like the C-3PO or R2-D2 of Lord of the Rings, to where it's that God. It's okay. Before is
I'm
Okay,
not gonna say you're wrong because yes, you're right, but it's just that kind of ruins
it's
the
an annoying
studio
thought.
R2.
You don't want to put him in the same category. You don't want to give him that. I got
I
it.
mean, Gollum. My biggest fear with the Gollum movie is having to listen to that screechy, dry voice so much more during a movie. Like the dude seriously needs to get like a Kool-Aid jammer or something and lubricate that voice because these things are refreshing, they're delicious, and they make my voice feel much better when my voice is scratchy. So someone please get Gollum a Kool-Aid jammer, please,
You
so this
see,
will be bearable.
it's probably the Kool-Aid Jammer that probably turned him into Gollum because, as we all know, the Kool-Aid Jammer is just the knockoff of the Capri Sun, which is the, you know, all-time original and perfection of the pouch flavored drink. And I'm sure some will argue that, Tang was there even before then, but
Okay,
but it
so
was really Capri Sun that came first.
here's the biggest question: what's the Capri Sun mascot again? What's his catchphrase again? Huh?
Capri Sun
Huh?
has a mascot.
Huh? I didn't think so.
So you're trying to say it's
About
better because it has a mascot and Capri Sun doesn't?
oh yeah.
See, that's the thing. Capri Sun doesn't need a mascot. It speaks for itself. It is its own
It has no
mascot.
translation.
The pouch itself is its own mascot.
Your
That
belly's
Kool
the
Aid
pouch.
Jammers. See, you're just mad because I'm right.
No, you're not.
Anyways,
Look at him. Look at him. He's getting shit done. Oh yeah. He
the weird thing
breaks
is,
through barriers.
why don't you ever see him in
Never
the other
lets.
flavor?
Do what?
Why don't you ever see him in the other colored flavors? He's always red. But there's like blue Kool Aid, there's purple Kool Aid, there's orange Kool Aid.
I don't know.
Moving on back to so what I'll do is I'll kind of I have kind of an outline written out here, so I'll kind of just go through it very briefly to kind of add some context to it. So, and it lists the dates here, but I'm not going to. These are just going to be in order from obviously the earliest to the latest. So, earliest we see Gollum is when Smeagol kills Deagle and takes the ring, and then eventually is corrupted and becomes Gollum. Therefore, over time he retreats into the Misty Mountains, and then many years later, he runs into Bilbo during the events of The Hobbit, and effectively.
300 or 400 years later.
Well, I mean, okay, I'll just list the dates, I guess. It says TA. I don't think that's third age. Maybe it is. Okay, I'd say TA 2463 is when he kills Deagle. 2470, so that'd be 7 years later, he goes to the Misty Mountains. And then 2941, so it looks like that's about 500 years, which would add up.
It would be the third age because you got to remember the second age ended with the fall of Sauron and the losing of the One Ring. So it would have been, yes, the third age. The third age comes to an end when they finally defeat Sauron.
That's fair. And I do remember now, it did say in the movies that for 500 years it poisoned his mind, etc. Yeah. So 2941, he runs into Bilbo. And then 3 years later, 2944 to 51, Gollum leaves the mountains. And then he starts wandering off in search of the thief. I mean, see, at that point, he knows Bilbo's name, he knows Shire, but he doesn't know where the hell he's going. So 2944 to 51, he leaves the mountains and tries to go off and find Bilbo and tries to find the ring back. Then fast forward about 50 years at TA 3001, Bilbo's 111th birthday, and Frodo receives the ring. Fast forward 8 years later, the events of the new movie start to take place, where it says Gandalf and Aragorn actively begin hunting for Gollum. Aragorn searches the Anduin Valley, Mirkwood, and the Dead Marshes, and Gandalf pursues research into the ring's history. So once again, that's kind of hinted to at the movies, but it makes it seem like it just happened over the course of a few days, weeks, etc.
So how come Gandalf and his heavenly divine horse gets the easy job? He gets to just sit his old ass in a library somewhere, sipping on some Kool-Aid, in reading, while Aragorn has to be out in the wild doing all the work. I don't think that's very fair.
Funny enough, he doesn't.
You just said
So
he was
once
out in the wilderness hunting.
correct, but once again, and this isn't in the notes, but I just know this because once again, it's fresh in my mind from having listened to the audiobook. But Gandalf doesn't get Shadowfax until he escapes from Isengard.
True.
To where he literally his in the books he escaped Isengard, and then because Isengard is so close to Rohan, he had that eagle that you saw in the movie that carried him away. He could only carry him so far as Rohan, so he had him drop him off at Rohan, and then he told Theoden to say, "Hey, give me your best, fastest horse or whatever." And at that point, he rode him to Rivendell, and then he sent him back to Theoden after he had gotten there, and then later recalls him back in Two Towers.
No, I'd
But
let Lady Arwen ride me all the way to Rohan. That's for sure. Don't edit that out.
shut up. So we left off in 3009 where they're both searching, and then between the time 3009 to 3017, so approximately 8 years. Yeah, math's right. You have Gollum roams through the Wilderland. He comes near Mordor and is eventually captured by Sauron's servants. He's tortured in Mordor and reveals the words Baggins and Shire. And then later, Sauron deliberately releases him, hoping Gollum will lead Sauron's agents to the ring. And then in the year 3017, Aragorn actually captures Gollum. He says he allegedly he captures him somewhere in the realm of the dead marshes. Then he delivers the Gollum to the King Thranduil. As we remember, King Thranduil and Mirkwood, Legolas's dad, and he basically gets thrown into into the same prison that the dwarves got imprisoned in Mirkwood. And also in the year 3017, Gandalf interrogates him there and confirms his suspicion that Bilbo's ring is the One Ring. So I say all that to say, once again, the movie confirms all this, but it kind of it doesn't tell you the why and the how. Where Gandalf's sitting there telling Frodo, "Hey, I looked everywhere for the creature Gollum. The enemy found him first, and they found out two words, Baggins and Shire." But then, okay, how did Gandalf know about all this? Well, because several years later, when they captured Gollum, he interrogated Gollum himself, saying, "What happened? What did you know?" To where Gollum literally told him, "Yeah, I was captured in Mordor. I told him this," and so later on, fast forward, he was able to tell Frodo all this. So it's like one of these weird things at the time you don't really catch during the movies, but it kind of all pieces together.
Well, yeah, I kind of like the way the movie did it.
It wasn't bad at all.
Not a lot of important things happened during those 50 years. A lot of searching. They found him. Okay, sweet. But
Sure.
The only thing that really mattered was the enemy captured him. He gave up a name, gave up a location, and we moved on.
Well,
so I think they did it exactly correct.
Well, yeah, and Peter Jackson did that magnificently, where he said, "Okay, I only have so many minutes, so many hours that this movie can be, but we still have to be able to convey all this information to the audience." So it literally took the place of that 10-minute conversation.
The conversation you're speaking about is when he was asked about Tom Bombadil, correct? Why he chose to leave Tom Bombadil out, and he kind of said the movie's only so long, and
that was part of it. Yes,
doesn't really present a solid character. He doesn't have a real purpose, so they chose to nix him because he doesn't have a long-term purpose in the story. He just shows up and then he's gone.
Correct, but it was also the same reason when people got upset about how they did The Hobbit, to where they brought in, "Oh, this wasn't in the book, this wasn't in the book." However, it was the same reasoning to where Jackson did it from a stance of movie storytelling, but also to where he could continue it. So if nobody had ever read a single book in their life, it would make the connection between the movies they had already loved, and to where, okay, it still made sense for everybody. And I think he did that.
Purpose with same thing with Glorfindel too.
Oh yeah,
he didn't have time to really. I mean, if you introduce Glorfindel, you have to make sure the audience knows how insanely powerful he is, but then you have to then find a way to explain why you're not sending him on with the Fellowship. So it's just one of those things where it's just easier to give the old creative write out.
Well, yeah, and I mean, if not, well, not just write out, but in many cases, a replacement. And I think you already knew this. Well, so that's kind of the lead up, and that's kind of the, I guess, situation that is the upcoming Ring movie, Hunt for Gollum. And I will say on a side note, and if you haven't checked it out, I'm not really big into anime movies or that kind of genre of filmmaking, but uh, I did check out the War of the Rohirrim when I was on a plane not too long ago. It just happened to be in the movie selection. I was like, all right, I'll give it a try. And actually, even though I'm not a big fan of anime, as far as like the story and all that, I think it's at least worth like one watch. If nothing else, it's a good connecting.
I'll give it a shot.
It's a good connecting movie. But all right, so any more thoughts on Hunt for Gollum before I kind of transition a little bit here to kind of go over the at least the major differences between the film adaptation of the Lord of the Rings and versus the books?
I did, but that thought's already
Well,
gone.
well, if it comes back to you, just like stop whatever we're doing. We'll just sidebar for a second. All right. So a couple of these we've already touched on, but I'll just kind of go through them in order as.
Oh, I got it.
All right, what you got?
So, do you think the Hunt for Gollum would be better suited for a TV series? Something that because the story is what'd you say, a 50-year long story. Instead of trying to condense that into 2 to 3 hours, stretch it over 15 episodes, and then you can kind of like show off Middle Earth and give some nuances of different towns, different cultures, different places in Middle Earth, and just kind of give it like a good, solid character development story and such.
I would say yes. However, I think
more encounters with Gollum, more interactions with the TV series, and a better character build. And then you can even like have flashbacks to when he first got the ring and how he kind of slowly. I know the movies kind of took about 45 seconds to age him 500 years, but throughout the season, you could slowly you can go pre-ring, get a good build up of Gollum and what's his friend's name?
And Deagle.
Yeah, you can get like a good build up of like their friendship and how close they were, and then slowly build upon that and see that slow transition into what you have now. I think that would give him credit, give him more depth.
It would, however, I think there's not quite enough source material, and I feel like you would have to take a lot of liberties to kind of stretch that story over the course of that many episodes. I mean, because literally in the books there are points where it says, X amount of years later, and it does kind of jump around a little bit, where it kind of tells you, okay, kind of what's going on, but it's only in a few sentences. And so, therefore, if you try to tell that story more in depth, there's not a whole lot of source material to draw from. So, whoever's making it,
that gives you a lot of creative liberty, a lot of leeway there, where you can write in new things.
It doesn't, because still the Tolkien estate still has the legal rights to it and has to sign off on everything, and they're not going to sign off anything that's not.
I don't believe so. They've got the legal rights to the Silmarillion. I didn't think they had the rights to the Lord of the Rings.
They still do, yeah.
Says who?
I mean, feel free to look it up later and correct me, but I'm pretty sure the Tolkien estate still does.
I'll bring it up.
All right, so I'll kind of hit the major ones that at least listed out here in front of me. Some of them we've already kind of touched on and covered. So first off, the timeline compression that we've already talked about, to where the major gap in time to where between Gandalf leaving the Shire and Frodo eventually leaving is in the span of many years, as opposed to a few weeks or months. And then, yes, as you mentioned earlier on, the character in full of Tom Bombadil, which I get it. I understand why he was left out. I think it's a shame, but in the span of storytelling, you couldn't give him 2 minutes of screen time and do him justice, but therefore you couldn't still spend a half hour on him and still not have a 6-hour movie. It's one of those where kind of how like Star Wars did the Tales of the Jedi or Tales of the whatever, kind of those little shorts or something like that. Maybe that's
Yeah,
what Lord of the Rings needs in some respect, to where okay, that avenue of being able to tell those little bits of story on film, but you would maybe do something like that in that kind of format. But
maybe.
yeah, just kind of food for thought. Another one
That's
that
why I
you
like
kind
the Rings of Power because they are bringing in Tom Bombadil. They're kind of showing what he's capable of, and I like that.
I think Jack Black would have made a great Tom Bombadil,
That yes, just yes. That's all you need.
and he would love every second of it. He'd be another one of those where
Oh
I
yeah.
guarantee you probably would
The,
have to
the,
pay him
the
anything.
only the only reason I would say no in Rings of Power is because he's just some other character. And now if there was a standalone Tom Bombadil show, sign him up all day. I don't even know what the story would be, but Jack Black will figure it out and make it work. He made
But
Minecraft work. He can make Tom Bombadil work.
But no, that's the thing. And even in the Fellowship, it's like this very dark and very serious story. But Tom Bombadil's is completely separate. It's almost like an acid trip for the entire time he's like in the story, to where
Yeah.
what the fuck is going on? This dude is like some kind of all powerful fucking deity, but he's
He's
a
a
giant
son of a
goofball.
bitch. He's just happy. He don't give a fuck. And yeah, that's Jack Black to it.
And oh,
Darkest
oh, I'm
moment.
sorry.
Here comes Jack Black singing some Tenacious D shit, playing some weird flute damn thing, and with the big old hat, having
Oh,
a
sorry.
grand
Now,
old time.
now we got to leave. Now we got to leave Tom's house. Now we got to get serious again about the Nazgul chasing us. Okay, put on your serious faces again.
Yeah.
Um, but I digress. The next one you kind of partially brought up was the including a Glorfindel, and just to be uh, basically what they did in the first half of the movie is they swapped out the character of Glorfindel for Arwen, to where Glorfindel in the books is actually the one who meets him in the woods, and it's him that essentially gets Frodo across the river. And funny enough, it's not mentioned in the movies either, but yes, it's a combination of Glorfindel, like the elven magic that causes the water to come down. However, it's stated in the books that Gandalf, because Gandalf is already at Rivendell, the whole image where you see like the horses in the water that are coming after the Nazgul, that was actually Gandalf's addition to that magic. Yeah, it's one of those little fun little tidbits, like, oh shit, that's kind of cool. And see, and tell you what,
Okay.
this, they always told us growing up, hey, you should always like read the book, then watch the movies. This is another perfect example to where that's just not true, and actually the opposite is true, because you watch the movies first, and then you enjoy it, but then you read the books later, and it's like, oh wait, there's all this like extra extended scenes or deleted scenes that got left out, and it's like now you can enjoy it even more. It's like the extended edition on crack. But I
Oh no,
digress.
I can
Uh,
feel.
so there's a couple other ones here. One, characterization of Faramir in the books. Faramir explicitly rejects the temptation of the ring. He rejects it right away. However, in the movie, it kind of makes him seem like he's tempted throughout. He's kind of struggling with it a little bit.
Yeah, they didn't do him. They kind of made him a little bitch in the movie, which was kind of shitty of them to do. Because Faramir was a very honorable character in the book.
They they added
Never
more depth.
did they. They just kind of made him his daddy's little bitch.
Well,
He's begging for daddy's approval, and I don't know.
well, I
He
think it
was
was meant
actually
to.
a very fierce warrior in the book, correct?
He was, but the thing is, I think he's meant, and what they tried to do in the movies was trying to desperately show him as being an in between Aragorn and Boromir. To whereas Boromir, I mean, at least they kind of made it seem like he was very easily seduced by it, but Aragorn wasn't. And so Faramir was kind of that in between, to where okay, he was kind of tempted by it, but he ended up having the will to overcome it on his own.
Yeah, I suppose.
This one, I haven't. I have to read the Return of the King in full to get this one. But another thing I was eliminated entirely was the Scorching of the Shire. How after the events of the Return of the King, when the hobbits come back to the Shire, it's actually under attack, and they have to actually fight. And where I'll just read where it says, In the books, Saruman survives Isengard and goes to the Shire and corrupts it in the scoring of the Shire chapter. And he is then killed by Wormtongue, kind of similar to what we saw in the movie. But yeah, there's this whole other thing where, oh, yeah, after, oh, my friends, you bow to no one. Oh, by the way, the Shire is still under attack.
Good luck.
Yeah. There's next one. This actually explains. A lot of people ask the question, why didn't the Army of the Dead? Why did you release them? Why didn't you just take them to Mordor to help them fight? Finished off Sauron's army. Whereas in the book, it says the Army of the Dead helped Aragorn take the Corsair ships. However, he released them before they got off the boat. He released them after he took the ship, so they were gone before they even landed in Gondor. So they actually weren't at the Battle of Pelennor Fields. And the funny thing is, I think it said somewhere else that actually in the books they couldn't actually fight. They were literally just scary ghosts. They weren't like in the movie where they could actually kill living things. Yeah. Apparently, that wasn't the case. A couple other ones.
It kind of ruins the movie a little bit.
A little bit. I mean,
you see Gondor. They make this Rohan make this grand entrance in the movie, and then they lose. Let's not sugarcoat it. They lost. They failed in the movie, and they had to be saved by ghosts. I think that kind of ruins it.
I'm sorry. In the world of theatric epicness, I'll give him a pass.
I don't know. It would have been nice to see him whip some ass. Call it a day.
There's this next one. I think there's actually, if you look closely at some of the footage, you can actually see some of it where they originally shot it this way, but they end up cutting it out of the final script. The elves at Helm's Deep. In the books, there are no elves that fight at Helm's Deep. There's like no elves that ever show up. The only additional people that show up are men of Rohan and some of the Dunedains that were present. And I think, if I remember right, they originally shot it so Arwen was at Helm's Deep fighting in some capacity. You'd have to look it up to see exactly what it was, and then allegedly there's like a scene where you can actually kind of see her in the background, just kind of briefly, that they couldn't cut out. But then obviously in the movies, it was swapped out with the elves helping, led by Hadir. See what else we got. I think there's two more, I think. This one says Frodo and Sam's journey. In the books, their path to Mount Doom emphasizes their exhaustion, the rationing of food, and long despair. The movie condenses much of this and focuses on the conflict with Gollum and kind of intercuts heavily with the Gondor battles. So I guess in the books, it's much more apparent that, they're suffering, they're hungry, they're going through all this. And you kind of saw that in Return of the King when, they're kind of getting down to their last bits of food and all that, and they make it seem more desperate. But I guess the books just do a lot more in-depth job of that, of making it seem terrible. But I don't know. Second to last, the character of Denethor. In the books, Denethor is a proud, tragic steward worn down by the Palantir and despair. His madness is much more subtle, and it's tied to Sauron's manipulation. Whereas in the movies, he played a much more erratic and almost cartoonishly unhinged kind of character, and it hints back to the sloppy eating and the tomatoes. And then the last one they have listed here, the ending, multiple chapters after Mount Doom, Aragorn's coronation, the scoring of the Shire, Saruman's death, Frodo's slow decline before sailing west, to which, in contrast, the movie kind of just wraps everything up with a nice little bow, to which, makes sense. You can't really say, oh, there was actually another battle and action sequence after you see the Barad-dûr fall and Sauron's defeated. You can't really do it again or have like a massive
some big climax after a big climax. It just doesn't work theatrically.
Sure, storytelling in one regard, but as far as film, maybe not so much.
Yeah.
All right. So without, before I lose my voice, any of these, I think there's like 10, 11. We kind of
pointed out. If you're losing your voice, remember, always drink a Kool-Aid Jammer.
I will go with the original, not the knockoff Capri Sun, all the way. So out of all these, is there any of them that kind of stand out to you as like, oh, that was more interesting than the rest, or oh, I wish they would have changed that? Is there any of those kind of differences that kind of stand out for you?
I wish they would have tried to get Glorfindel in there. That would be the one change. I thought they did it well. Arwen was very believable uh, substitute, um, but it would have been cool to see Glorfindel in there and kind of get him a cameo in some
Sure.
capacity. It would have been something easy to write off since I mean, he was written out in the book, so um, they could have added him in there and just followed the story, no problem. It wouldn't have been such a big deal just to have him make his appearance as Arwen. They say you're too powerful, you bring too much attention to the Fellowship. We can't have you with us, kind of thing. And so I wish they would have changed it and kept it aligned with the book, but it is what it is. I understand they did a good job with the substitution.
No, that's fair. I'll buy that completely. And if I had to take a guess, it's almost like they substituted it for, I'm sure, a couple of different reasons, but I think one of them was kind of establishing that initial, the romantic end between Aragorn and Arwen, because that's kind of the first, I mean, it's the first time you see her, but kind of that awful initial playful, like, oh, she's not just some dainty elf, whatever. She's a fucking badass who's gonna fight, anybody. She don't give a shit. And I think that helps because I feel like after that, really after that, the entire character in the movies is played as kind of that dainty, oh, I'm dying, I'm withering away, oh, I'm helpless, I need love, blah blah blah. And which I think was in itself kind of overwhelming between the events of the Two Towers and Return of the King. But I think that initial entry from the in the Fellowship really helped save the character more than it could have. But
Yeah.
uh, yeah, but yeah, she didn't come across. But I think they almost did that with the same with that one. What was the girl's name from Rohan? The what was her name? The one that was trying to get with Aragorn, who was like who's at Helm's
About Eowyn.
Eowyn, yes. It's almost a kind of a similar thing to where, like, a lot of it almost like making her seem extremely helpless and like very dainty, this, that, and the other. But they tried to balance that out between, okay, she was, always ready to fight. She's always like, strong. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking too deep, but maybe they could have balanced that a little bit better.
She seemed like she was an obsessive stalker in the movie.
Yeah, it came on just a little bit strong.
A little bit.
But I'll tell you what, did bring up a good idea. I think that I don't know how they would do it or in what capacity, but I think that would be the way to do it to kind of integrate some of these side storylines, kind of like the shorts, whether it be like like a mini series where it's like, okay, each individual part is its own story, like maybe call it 45 minutes long, to where one of them be Tom Bombadil, another one be the scoring of the Shire, another one being, kind of all these bits where, okay, they didn't really make it in there, but you can at least visually depict it. Okay, almost like what they did with the Clone Wars and Star Wars, how they did it in that format. But or hell, I would love a live action version of it. Don't get me wrong, but I think that would be the way to do it, to where it kind of satisfies that need of, well, you left this part out. We want to kind of see that in a movie or kind of see that on, a television type format.
So here's my rebuttal. Instead of wasting your time with, because no one watched Tales of the Jedi. Let's be real. We watched a couple. We watched the Count Dooku one. We watched the Qui Gon one. We nitpicked. We pick and chose the ones we watched. Um, they need to focus their time and effort into getting the Tolkien family to allow them to do the first two ages of Middle Earth, and we want a visual depiction of the Morgoth saga. I think it's time. We're ready for it, and that's where the focus ought to be, is putting the next, maybe even make that a sixth film, not, instead of just doing a standard trilogy, stretch it. You got plenty of source material. Stretch that bitch out. Make it six.
I feel like you'd have to do that in the animated style, though, I mean, to make it not only cost effective, but I mean, you could do so much more with it visually. It wouldn't cost you $1.5 trillion. So, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I feel like that could be done.
I mean, yeah, you might have to scale back some of the epic battles they had of dragons and Balrogs and
That's
all
the
this
thing. You
shit
can't.
all over
You
the
can't
place.
really. You can't scale it back without I feel like taking something away from it, and I get that, and that's why
We want a
because
live
of that
action. We don't want an anime. We want a live action.
you don't
Amazon,
want
they got the money. They
you don't
spent
want a
how
live
many
action
billion
done
to do what the
wrong.
fuck they did here? They got the
You
money.
you don't want a live action done wrong though.
Okay, then let Elon do it. He don't give a fuck. He'll spend money on the dumbest shit.
He's a big enough nerd for it. I guarantee he would. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's worthless. I don't
All
like him.
right.
We're not gonna go into that tangent.
Maybe next episode. So, any closing thoughts before we wrap things up?
Um, Morgoth is our president right now. It's my only thought. Let's
Oh
move on.
God. Well, on that momentous high note, that'll do it for all of us here at the High Ground. And remember, always reminding you to stay nerdy, stay knowledgeable.
And always take the high road, high ground, whatever. You know what I meant.
See you next time.
Too many Kool-Aid jammers, right?